welcome to episode 10 of the Inside Sports Podcast. This with the DE capitalized. We're going to catch you up with some dogs at the vet. Men's basketball team last week. Can somebody please explain SIU sports to me? Because I just don't understand it. We go on the road and beat a very good Oklahoma State team. They got 5 stars like Bryce Thompson, Musa Kise, and then we end up losing to Southern Indiana later in that week. Let's first touch on that Oklahoma State game. Mm-hmm. That game made me feel so confident about where this team is headed. And Oklahoma State's a really, really good team. There's a guy named Avery Anderson. I didn't mention him either. He was some 3-star that was from Oklahoma. He's an incredible, incredible player. And it was like down the stretch. It was like somewhat of a comeback too. I believe Damask hit the game-winning 3, not at the end, but near the end, which put a lot of pressure on them. It was just an incredible game. But then we go. I think Southern Illinois, it's like a Southern Illinois thing where we're like, all right, we got some momentum going, and then lose to Southern Indiana's first ever D1 basketball game that they held in their stadium. I don't know. Did you guys catch those games? What do you guys think?
I mean, I thought, talking about the Oklahoma State game first, with Marcus Damask specifically, I think he shot like 5 of 15 for the game, but he was 4 or 5 from 3.
Yeah.
And his typical game is back a smaller guy down in the post, go up with a nice little hook shot or baby hook or whatever. Mm-hmm. This game he was forced to take shots from the 3-point line. He shot it really well. Obviously, that last shot to put us ahead at the end was a 3-pointer. I thought he played really well down the stretch. Obviously, coming back down 13 is a big deal, no matter who you're playing, especially at Oklahoma State. And then I think the Southern Indiana game, I don't really know how to feel. A part of me is like, that's just a perfect letdown spot where we're going to go in a hostile environment there, sold-out crowd for their first ever D1 game.
Yeah.
And coming off that emotional Oklahoma State win, we're just not going to be in the right mindset. But then I think back to last year, we beat Colorado when we went to the Virgin Islands for the Paradise Jam.
That's true.
And we know how last season turned out. It didn't go as well as we thought it would. So I still think, even though this team played the first 2 games amazingly well, I think we still have a lot to learn. I think we'll learn that coming home this week and onto the next week into Christmas and Thanksgiving before conference play starts.
Yeah.
And I think we got 2 guys who I feel really comfortable with having the ball in their hands late in games in those pressure situations in Jones and Damask. And I feel like, Damask hit the game winner, but I want to give a lot of props to Jones for finding the open man in Damask late in the game.
We came back because of Jones. He had incredible.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure we were down by either I want to say 13 or 16, and all those points came from Damask and Jones. Just those 2. Those guys can lead our team to victory, but I just feel like we need a third guy that's going to help lead our team, and we got to kind of figure out who that is. If it's one of those newbies in like Juwan Newton or maybe Trent Brown, our guy that we interviewed a couple weeks ago. Somebody that's going to step up, at least offensively, to add to our point total. I know defensively in the second game against Southern Indiana, that was the 3rd most points that they had allowed since the beginning of last season, which is just weird for our defense.
Yeah, our defense should be able to. Yeah.
Very inconsistent with that, but like I said, we just need a third offensive guy to put up points on the board, if it's at the rim or if it's at the 3-point line like Damask and Jones.
I think that's a really good way of putting it, and I think that, like you said, last year I feel Ben Coupet kind of emerged as I think it's either Coupet or Coupe, but he emerged as that guy for us. So we're going to need to see some improvement, whether it be from somebody like that. Plus, I think it's also important that we're missing J.D. Mula. I believe he stands at like somewhere around 6'10", something like that. So we're starting Troy D'Amico out there at center, and Troy D'Amico's really good. He's been playing all right at center, but man, so that will be a disadvantage, especially once we come into Valley play.
He had the game-winning block or steal.
Yeah, I think it was steal.
So.
And don't forget Scotty Abube coming off the bench. He's going to look to have a big year this year. Out 6 to 8 weeks, broke his arm. That's going to be huge, especially a guy, he can score too. And even if JD does come back, he's not the offensive threat that he is, so that's going to be a big loss. hopefully he comes back in time for conference play because we're definitely going to need him
Yes.
if we look to do anything this year.
I think that's a really good point. And then the last thing I did want to say, I tuned into that Southern Indiana game. I thought it was an easy one. I tuned in, I saw that it was a close one. And there was a point in the second half where I don't think they missed a bucket for like 4 minutes straight. So sometimes that does just happen, and you get those hot streaks. But man, you would have liked to see us start 3-0. It definitely would make us feel a little bit better. Next, women's basketball. Not feeling nearly as good about it. Pretty bad loss to open up the Kelly Bond White era, losing at home by 51 points to Middle Tennessee. Listen, we're not going to go into panic mode. There's no reason to go into panic mode.
It's one game.
It's one game, and this is a team that's bringing in a new coach, almost entirely new staff, almost entirely new roster. I think we saw a lot of good stuff from Lania Randall. That's personally, somebody that I've been keeping my eye on because I just think she plays the game really well. She had 11 points for us, 7 rebounds and 3 blocks. That's a good game in my book. I think there's definitely still a lot of more room to grow, but we're gonna have to find ourselves, and I think we'll be able to do that under Bond White. And I'm not gonna freak out and overreact to this Middle Tennessee loss, but it definitely, you start smelling something in the air. You start to get a little nervous.
Yeah, in the post-game recap, Kelly Bond White said, I think what you saw there was a potential NCAA tournament team, and I think that might be the best way to just put that last game. That's a team that's just really difficult to face, starting off the season with so many new faces and everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But so a new coach, knew everything basically with this team. That's difficult for anybody in that situation. So I don't want to say I don't blame this team for that type of performance because a 50-point loss stinks either way, regardless. But it happened, and we're gonna move on. I would hope so, at least. I would think Kelly Bond White would get these girls ready next week to not have that type of performance again.
That's what these early games are for. You figure yourselves out before you get in the conference.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think she is right about MTSU being a tournament team. I mean, they were projected number 1 in the Conference USA in this offseason. They're really, really good. It just seemed like they're playing a different sport, playing with a different speed. Kind of like when the USA goes over to play in the Olympics and they play a really small country. I don't know the specifics, but we're just playing a different sport, and that's what it looked like. And I do think that we still have a couple players injured. Adriana Ketcher in particular is going to add that depth to the bench that we desperately need right now. Coming up against IUPUI and Northwestern this week. Now we have a history, thankfully, of beating Northwestern in sports, but they're still a Big Ten team, and that's still a big test. But they can, even if they lose that game, they can still show some life, and hopefully, coming back from that, they'll be better as we head more toward conference play starting in January, around there.
Yeah. And then women's volleyball. We had the good week last week. We're kind of back down to reality now. Losses against Drake and UNI. Granted, both really 2 very good teams in the conference. So we currently sit at 17-12, 10-7 in Missouri Valley. I believe that's still good enough for 3rd. Don't fact check me on that.
4th right now.
4th right now. Okay, so we're 4th. And for the next week, we got Missouri State on Wednesday. One little game to kind of keep us ready for the conference tournament that starts on Sunday. And now, if they've never been a 4 seed, then we'll start on Monday. But still, that game on Wednesday will be pretty important for how we feel, especially coming off of 2 losses. You'd have to think that you want to get at least one more win under your belt before heading into the tournament. So just so you can feel good, If you head in with 3 straight losses, especially, Drake, we got swept. We got swept pretty badly, too. So we're going to need to look Missouri State dead in the eye and say, we're going to essentially kick your ass. We need that next step so that we can head into the tournament where we can feel like, let's go prove ourselves, let's do well. And we want to remain that 4 seed so that we get that bye. I think this team's really good. I think they will beat Missouri State, but it's going to be tough. And I hope we can really put something together in the tournament.
Yeah, I think so. I'm pretty excited about the tournament, pretty excited about this last game against Missouri State. This weekend I draw up what happened against Drake to the fact that the UNI game was so close. UNI was the number 1 team in the conference, and we could have won that match. I mean, it was crazy.
That's
I loved
true.
watching that one, and again, the Drake one. I think it was just a perfect letdown spot after that emotional loss versus UNI. And like you said, need a dub this week before heading into the conference tournament, and keeping that higher seed is so huge because then you don't play as maybe as good of a team in the first round or two, and you get to advance on and get your shot against a team like Drake, like UNI. So a lot of young players on this team. A lot of the best players are young, so it's going to be important that the few seniors and juniors maybe step up in a leadership role because we're going to need it.
Yeah.
Specifically in that UNI game, I mean, they had a chance to hand UNI their first conference loss of the year. I feel like that says something about this team heading into the tournament. Even though that was a loss, I feel like that gives them confidence. And the Drake game, that was a lot closer than what it seems like, at least on the scoreboard. They got swept, but those sets were 25-22, 25-23 each one. They were all close. So I know, moral victories don't really count in this sport, but I mean, we'll see heading into the tournament. We just got to win against Missouri State, get our confidence back. We'll see how it goes in the tournament. I think a first round bye would do dividends for this team. We just got to remain that 4 seed because if we lose, there's a chance that I can't even remember who the other two teams behind them, but they could rise to that 4th spot.
Yeah.
And take that bye.
It's a
away.
close race in
Yeah,
Missouri
it
Valley. So speaking of teams that could use a momentum boost, our last sport to talk about is the SIU football team. You guys had the chance to talk to Blake Rowland last week, and that was a really good interview. We heard a lot of really good stuff. I said it last week. If you're expecting a win against North Dakota State, who has dominated the FCS for the past 10 years, don't expect a win. We played them pretty close. It was a little closer than what the score actually was, I feel. But 21-18 loss. That means we're 5-5, 4-3 in the conference. Luckily, we're playing a Youngstown State, which I think that we could get some momentum from. I believe we should win that game. Now, granted, the games we should win aren't always the games that we win as an SIU football program. But, I think it's fair to, kind of say their playoff hopes are very small at the least for us right now. And it just, it as a fan, of course, it kind of sucks because I think this is our last kind of grouped year with a lot of these core, especially offensive guys. Last year we lost a lot of important defensive guys, Notree, Brown, Knighton, Burner. We lost all those guys that were really, really good for us. And this year, I think next year it's our offense that'll take a hit. Nobody really knows what's going to happen with Baker. The Cox brothers will be gone. Javon might leave. Justin Strong might leave. We got a lot of older players, and I think it's just it's gonna be really hard next year if we try and just scrap something together. We're gonna, kind of look at it as like a women's basketball team, and every program goes through these types of changes. But I'm just saying that you would have liked to see this year and I don't know, gather around and really put our effort. Because last year, I just remember. It's my freshman year. When we start out 6-0, 7-0, whatever it was such a special thing, And even though we trailed off at the end of the year, you still felt like last year's team was special because of how well we played in those first couple 6 to 7 weeks. But we're here. There's nothing we can do for it. We got to finish out the season strong. But it does hurt,
Yeah, I think it's more of at least for playoffs this year, right now so you're telling me there's a chance situation.
Yeah.
We need about 7 teams to lose next week, and then obviously us to beat Youngstown State, but that's not a given for SIU at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just disappointing to say the least, I guess. I don't want to say this season was a waste, but you really kind of went into the season thinking there was some potential there.
Yeah.
And then we lose that SEMO game, and then we take that Northwestern game, so it's like, oh wow, we're back, 5-game win streak, and then we drop the next couple. It's just weird.
It's been a huge
Up and
roller
down.
coaster of a season.
Up and down season.
Terrible loss to start the year, and then SEMO too, which was just like, what are we doing? But then we beat Northwestern, but that win might not even be good because I believe they're sitting at 1-8 or 1-9 right now. So
That's true.
Yeah, Northwestern is just god awful.
yeah,
I mean, in the rain and wind, they're amazing.
Yeah.
But not when the weather's nice. No, Saturday's game was sort of demoralizing. I mean, I never really thought we stood a chance. I mean, at halftime we were only down 7-3, and I'm like, North Dakota State's held the ball for what seemed like the entire half. They were just running it down our throat.
yeah,
And now, this is not a North Dakota State podcast, but that kind of play style keeps the other team in the game a lot longer. And we still had a chance. I mean, we still had everything in front of us. But yeah, just two little possessions. I think our offense didn't really get a whole lot of chances to do a lot, and we got dominated on the line of scrimmage on both ends, really.
yeah.
That's kind of demoralizing. This team, like on paper, do they have enough talent to like maybe win a playoff game? Maybe, but we haven't earned it at this point. I mean,
Yeah.
5-5. Best we're going to be at 6-5. I don't think that the playoff committee or whoever puts this together is going to look at our resume and say, they got that win against Northwestern. Let's check on Northwestern. Oh, never mind. So
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not really. I hope they just play for pride, and I hope they go out there and smack them because that's all they can really do at this point.
Yeah. I think that's a good way of putting it. So that'll do it for the Dogs of the Vet segment. Hope you enjoyed that. We actually don't have an interview this week, no episode of Saluki Space. So we're just going to go ahead and jump right into our Told You So segment and let you know what we think for this upcoming weekend. So for this week, this guy did not tell you so. He was incorrect 2 times. Now, I got the Bama game over Ole Miss. I think we could all predict that. Closer game than I kind of indicated that, so I guess I'm still correct on that aspect too, but that doesn't count for a win. I was correct about UCF and Tulane, especially correct about John Rice Plumlee, my guy. He had a really, really good run in that game. Happy to see UCF really turn the program around. I'm not a Gus Malzahn fan at Auburn, but I'm a Gus Malzahn fan when he's at UCF.
Yes.
How did that TCU Texas game?
All right, buddy, I'm getting there. All right. So, TCU did beat Texas. We saw this coming. Foresaw this team as an 8-4 team. If we just finish out Kansas and Baylor, we'll that'll be a successful season.
No.
All right, let's.
Did he really just say that?
This is not.
Roll the
It's
clip
not
from
a
2
Texas-
weeks ago when he was talking about playoffs.
Shut
Best
up.
offense in
Shut
the
up.
country, all
Shut
that
up.
stuff. Roll the
I
clip.
really did think Quinn's kind of fallen off a cliff a little bit. I think that's just a footwork issue. I think it's a play calling issue, which that's a whole bigger thing to begin with. Xavier Worthy, I know you're watching this. Get it together. All right, I'm looking right here. Get it together, please. He's not our guy. I want to see more Whittington involved. And Jadavion Sanders. He only got like 3 targets. I don't know. Just a weird one. Well, we're not going to dive too deep on that. I picked Wake Forest at home. I thought they'd be able to get it done. Apparently UNC is a real deal. I don't know. They're the weakest 9-1 team ever. But good for them. I think Drake May, I don't know. Would he be in the Heisman discussion? He's really good, but I think that your team actually has to be good to win the Heisman. Who knows? This upcoming week, there's not really a whole lot of super good games. But for all of them, we're going west, apparently. The game day is going to Montana at Montana State. FCS matchup. Let's go. That's what we like to see. And to Bozeman. And I'm going to go ahead and pick the team from Bozeman. I'm going to go with Montana State. Usually it's the Grizzlies who are the dominant powerhouse. But this year, Montana State's really the one who's been taking the reins from them. I think they definitely got a chance to beat the Grizzlies. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't have too much on this game, but I think since it is in Bozeman, I think they are the better team on paper, just slightly. I mean, Montana's always got. It's kind of like Montana is not Alabama in the FCS. North Dakota State is the Alabama in the FCS, but because they've been good for so long, there's always that possibility that they'll turn back the clock.
Yeah.
But I am going to pick Montana State though, in the game that I think will be really, really, really close.
Mm-hmm. It'll definitely be a good one.
I have a question for you about this game. Okay. This is college game day, isn't it?
This is.
So what do you think of them putting an FCS game on college game day?
Well, it's definitely not the first time that they've done it. They did like a North Dakota State game a couple of years ago, but then this year they had the HBCUs face off with Jackson State versus Southern. Personally, I guess in a week like this week, I pointed out that it's not really the best week for college football. You know, I got some good games on here. I probably would have picked maybe. Honestly, no. I would. You know what? For this week, I'd pick this one. I think that the other two games I talk about, they're definitely good games. They're definitely important games to talk about, but they're not necessarily. It features a couple teams that are trending down, which I don't know if it's going to get the viewership up. So, I like it. I do like it. I like when they throw in a little curveball every now and again. Granted, if it was, last week or the week prior, and they're like, we're actually not going to Tennessee, Georgia. We're going to North Dakota State and South Dakota State. I'd be like, are you sure? Who's the higher up there that made that choice? Next game that I want to talk about is number 7 at USC and number 16 UCLA. UCLA obviously had that terrible loss to Arizona, so that's what I was talking about with teams trending down. USC's been winning, but they've been winning while also allowing like 45 points a game. This is in the Rose Bowl, and I'm gonna pick UCLA in this one. I think they're a better matchup for USC, especially with USC proving that they can't stop anybody. At least sometimes in the season, UCLA can stop people. Granted, Arizona's transfer QB from Washington State, Jaden Delora, he cooked UCLA last week, and I think that Caleb Williams' mobility is just as good as Jaden Delora, so I think that could give them real issues. Like I said, I'm going to take UCLA because I think they're at home. I think that they're a really good matchup for USC. So we're seeing that it's kind of the same old Pac-12 where the teams are definitely better, but I wouldn't necessarily say that this is, some new improved Pac-12. USC at 7 is extremely generous. What are the stats for this game?
Yeah, stats for this game, I was supposed to say they went 0-4 last week.
Oof.
So if you thought you were bad going 2-2, the stats went 0-4.
But the stats have had a really great year.
They've had a good year. The CFB stats are now under 500 because of that.
Oh,
They were good, but now they're not great. I do just want to say the Pac-12, the conference as a whole is a lot better this year, but they did what they do themselves every single season, where they have multiple teams. They had 3 teams this year that had a chance at the playoffs, and they both lost at home last week against teams that they were clearly better than on paper, but they weren't like all that surprising. But they were still better on paper and should have won. Since Chip Kelly took over UCLA in 2018, this is a weird one. He's 9-2-2 against the spread with a rest disadvantage. So whenever another team plays him, he has more or less rest than them. I don't know how to word this. USC played on Friday last week, so they have that extra day of preparation. But I guess if you're playing Chip Kelly, it's more like rust as opposed to rest.
Interesting.
So I don't really. That's a weird one, but that is what I found, and that's pretty convincing. 9-2-2. I mean, that's a good record.
What a way to put it. Rust instead of rest.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So 9-2-2 is crazy. Best in Pac-12. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, well, clearly I made the right pick, and there's no reason to worry about that at all. There's no way that I'll get it wrong.
Nope,
So, number 10, Utah at number 12, Oregon. I was personally rooting for this year's Oregon team. I liked them. Bo Picks turned back into Bo Nix. That's something good. Bucky Irving and Noah Whittingham is probably, I'll go with either top 3 or top 5 running back duo in the country, especially Bucky Irving. He's probably my favorite back aside from John Robinson in the entire nation. The guy just gets 7 yards, and he's so small, but he's lightning quick. I love that guy. I know I mentioned him earlier. Number 10, Utah is rolling right now, but they still had like a weird year where they're like creeping around the 12th ranking because they've had 2 losses for forever. Everybody's going, oh, well, they're still a good team. I guess they are still a good team, but I think that Oregon's a good matchup for them. Washington kicked their butt because Michael Penix and that Kalen DeBoer, I don't know. Okay.
That's perfect, yeah.
Okay, Kalen DeBoer, the coach for Washington, they've got it rolling right now. Like you could almost compare it to like TCU with Sonny Dykes and Max Duggan. I roll, but yeah, I think Oregon wins this game because it's at home, and Utah's a run heavy team. They're not a pass heavy team. I mean, Cam Rising can do that, so don't be shocked if Utah walks in and upsets Oregon. But man, I mean, 2 conference rivals, like an upset in Autzen back to back. I think that's pretty tough.
Yeah, I would agree. The stats would not agree with you, though. Or maybe they will, actually. Oregon may still win the game, but every time I feel we do Utah on this, I feel like I have a Kyle Whittingham stat. It's
Mm-hmm.
that just shows how successful he's been there.
Yeah.
He's the best in the Pac-12 against the spread as a road underdog since he took over in 2005. He's 24-13. So Oregon can still win the game. Utah has been a team that we all kind of forgot about after the loss to Florida, after the loss to UCLA. I think we all kind of forgot about them, but they're still very much in this. They'll be higher ranked than they'll be the second highest ranked team at this point in the conference. So I like Oregon in the game, but I think it's going to be a fantastic one, kind of down the wire, just like last week's game.
If UCLA beats USC, do you think that makes Utah the best team in the conference?
I mean, depending on how they do against Oregon, but
Yes, I'm saying with the Utah win.
yeah, if Utah beats Oregon and then UCLA ends up beating USC, I mean, we'll find out. I mean, this is all going to work itself out, and all four of those teams have a chance at the Pac-12 championship. I think they're all pretty even, honestly. But I think the home teams have a slight advantage in this game, even though UCLA doesn't have anyone show up for their home games. But
Yeah. That's pretty much all that we've got for this week's college football. I guess we should touch on the Heisman Trophy odds, although there's almost really nothing to touch on. It's still wide open. I think Hooker's somewhat got the narrative, even despite a pretty trash performance against Georgia. Stroud's obviously putting it on. There's talk of Corum, which a running back went. Corum's not a Heisman running back.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
it's not like he's putting up these like ridiculous. I mean, he's putting up really good games. I mean, fantastic games, 100-yard games. But it's not like he's doing like Christian McCaffrey type stuff or
It's
even like Derrick Henry type stuff.
Exactly.
And those two guys were the top Heisman guys in their year. So I mean, he's still great, but I don't think he's like, this otherworldly generation.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. He's a really good back, but I think he's also benefiting from one of the best offensive lines in the entire country.
Absolutely.
It's weird. I'm trying to think of an NFL comparison in my head right now. I can't really think on that, but if TCU runs the table, is Duggan a part of that conversation? Who knows? So I think that I like what you guys put in here. Drake May would win if he was wearing another jersey.
He absolutely would.
It's true. He's incredible.
True.
I love Drake May.
His team is 9-1, and we still act like. I mean, they lost to Notre Dame, and they don't have any great wins on their resume.
Really don't.
If they run the table though and beat Clemson, crush Clemson in the ACC championship game, and everyone else just kind of plays the way that they've been playing, Booker's not going to get another chance. Stroud might struggle against Michigan. Corum might struggle against Ohio State, and Duggan. I don't think anyone's really talking about Max Duggan, and he doesn't have the stats either. So Drake May is going to have the stats, and if his team goes 12-1, I think he probably should get it. But he may not, just because he's wearing a North Carolina jersey.
Exactly. Now, something to throw out there. Is Drake May entering the portal after the season? Because you'd have to think. Because he was very close to committing to Alabama.
Yeah.
He was an Alabama commit. They're going to be losing Bryce Young. That thing's going to be wild. I mean, what? They're going to start Ty Simpson at Alabama? Get out of here.
I say no, only for one reason. North Carolina's recruited very, very well with Mac Brown there.
Well. Well, and they're quarterbacks, so there's like a quarterback thing.
And the ACC is terrible.
That's true.
There's never been a better. They might do it this year. There's never been a better time to strike in this conference. Because it's down so much. Clemson's not nearly as good as they used to be. Not even close.
Mm-hmm.
This is the perfect time. I think he stays.
It's interesting.
At least one more year. Let's see how next year goes.
If he transfers, I'll be pissed.
Yeah, I will be too. But what should we expect at this
I
point,
know.
though?
That's pretty much. Isn't that just what Alabama does? They just take
Pretty much.
ACC talent.
Yep.
They already took Jameer Gibbs.
So on the NFL side, I didn't do the greatest for picks this week, but who cares? Because the Packers are back in the win column, baby.
Woo!
Let's go. First win.
Clip that. That's a Bears fan going woo for a Packers win.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
That was the longest That was the longest losing stretch since I've been a fan of the Packers. So that was misery for me. Just saying, I was completely just
Packers lose 4 games.
5 games. Okay, get out of here. Get it right.
5 games.
But I was very happy with that type of performance. Christian Watson, he is a guy. He is the future for us at wide receiver.
Yes.
There are routes that he ran in that game that he didn't even need to make like a Devontae Adams type move because he's just so quick. And his speed is just crazy. He was getting by Trevon Diggs all game. Anyways, I went 1-3 for picks this past week. 49ers beat LA on Sunday Night Football. I thought that was going to be more of an offensively led game, but it was more the opposite, more defensively led game. The Niners beat them by like 3, I think. A really low scoring game.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously I picked against my Packers, and I shouldn't have. It came back from down 2 touchdowns in that fourth quarter. I mean, what do you expect from Aaron playing against the Cowboys? I shouldn't have bet against him. And then the Commanders ended the Eagles' undefeated season, which was weird. I watched that game.
Pretty nuts.
The refs kind of handed the Commanders the win there because there were some late calls in that game.
Questionable.
Just really questionable there. But I was kind of rooting for my guy Jalen Hurts in that one, not going to lie. But Eagles' undefeated season is no longer on, and I'm 26 for 36 on picks this year. 72.22 CPP, which is almost 20% better than you. Just
In college, in football, buddy. In football.
in football,
Right.
I'm just saying.
Gotta add in my NBA picks too, dude.
But we're going to go ahead to some of my picks. I like this game, Cowboys and Vikings. The Vikings, they went on the road and beat the Bills. That was a crazy ending to a game that you just wouldn't have thought, oh my goodness.
That was great.
Yeah. The way that transpired, the Bills had it in the bag and fumbled on the 1 yard line. How do you do that? Who would have thought? Anyways, I think the Vikings might be for real this year, just because of that type of performance. But I don't like saying that because I'm a Packers fan, of course.
First pod.
First
pod. This guy told you.
It took me about 10
Minnesota
weeks, but
Vikings, bro.
they're going to win the division. They might be the 1 seed if the Eagles don't pick it back up. Because, I mean, they only had the ball for like maybe 17 minutes in that game, the Eagles did. So they got to figure out offensively how to keep the ball in their hands longer. But anyways, the Vikings, they're legit. Kirk Thuggins, they kept talking about that on the broadcast all game. I loved that for some reason, even though I'm not a Packers fan. I still don't know how much I trust in him. And Kirk Thuggins, he's got one of the best wide receivers in the game right now, Justin Jefferson. He made a couple one-handed catches late in that game. That probably puts him at best wide receiver in the league, I would say. But there's a comparison I saw with this Vikings team to the 2019 Packers, and I feel like it's kind of like legit. They win a lot of these close games against like teams that you would think that they could like blow out if they're that good at least.
Mm-hmm.
And Zadarius Smith was a big piece to the rebuild of this team, of both teams. So that's a big, and they got a new head coach. So I feel like that's a fair comparison to make. So yeah, the Vikings, they are legit, but the Cowboys, they might be a little bit overrated. Trevon Diggs specifically, I would say, is overrated. He got cooked by Christian Watson all game. If you look at it is PFF, but if you do look at some of the PFF stats on Diggs, it'll show you that he might be a bit overrated just in terms of thinking that all those picks mean a lot, I guess. And they do mean something, but I wouldn't say he's one of the better backs in the league. Anyways, Cowboys' run defense is probably a real concern moving forward, allowing over 200 rush yards against Green Bay last week. And then they'll obviously face Dalvin Cook in this game on the road in Minnesota. That's something to be concerned about.
Mm-hmm.
I would probably pick Vikings in this game. I do think it'll be close, but we'll see. I pick Vikings 36, Cowboys 33 in this one.
I've actually got a lot of personal thoughts. I'll make it quick. Trayvon Diggs, yes, I totally agree with you. He's one of the most overrated defensive backs in the entire league. He's more in the right place at the right time as opposed to making a great play on a receiver. I'm still not a believer in the Vikings. I think Cole and I agree on that. The Bills lost that game. The Vikings didn't win it. Kirk Cousins played terrible. He threw 2 or 3.
Whoa.
He did play terrible. He threw 2 or 3 awful picks in that game. They shouldn't have even had a chance. The Bills handed them that game. But Justin Jefferson, I mean, he's absolutely incredible. And the last thing I'll say is the Packers have found a winning formula, which is take the ball out of Aaron Rodgers' hands, run the ball, and take a deep shot to Christian Watson, every once in a while, and we'll be fine. Just only have that be the passing game, and we'll be fine. But the stats hold up for the Cowboys in this one. The NFL stats went 3-0 last week, which is complete opposite from college. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah.
So I'm keyed in on the NFL right now. The Cowboys are a slight road favorite, and if that holds, they are the second best team in the NFL since the Dak era started back in 2016. Against the spread on the road as a favorite, they're 16-10-1. I think they're going to crush the Vikings. I might put something on that this weekend.
On the road, too.
On the road, yeah.
Alrighty, well, Sunday Night Football. We got Chiefs and Chargers. They played a couple weeks ago. I think it was the Thursday night game, which was kind of a thriller, but Justin Herbert, he got hurt late in that game. And I wanted to see him try to make a huge comeback, but it seemed like with his offensive line, he wasn't going to be able to do as much.
Yeah.
I hope we get another exciting one with this one, and I think we will. I just wish the Chargers would be able to keep Justin Herbert healthy all year, but I don't know if that's going to be able to happen. Anyways, this should be a high-scoring one, I feel like. But the Chiefs' defense is a lot better than you might think. They have one of the better rush defenses in the league. They're 5th in rush yards allowed, but they're 21st in pass yards allowed. And the Chargers already passed it so many times, so it's probably going to be a lot of Josh Palmer or Keenan Allen if he is back. I don't think Mike Williams will be back for this game, but definitely Josh Palmer and Keenan Allen on this. And on the other side of the ball, kind of worried about the running back position for the Chiefs specifically. I don't know if Joshua Pacheco, what's his last name? Isaiah Pacheco. I don't know if Isaiah Pacheco will be the guy for them moving forward. I mean, I just don't know how confident you feel giving him the ball 20 times a game, 15 times a game. They're probably just going to have to pass him a whole lot.
It seems like McKinnon's got a lot of the carries as of recently.
Well, Pacheco got like 18 last
Did
week.
really?
Yeah, he
Hands
did.
off? Okay.
So, but I mean, who knows? Maybe McKinnon might get some more this upcoming week. I don't know, but they're kind of weirding me out in that running back room right now. So, as much as I like the Chargers and their offense, I just don't think they're going to be able to keep up with Pat Mahomes this week. It was flexed to Sunday Night Football this week, so I'm hoping for a really decent one. I'm picking Chiefs 30, Chargers 27 in this one.
Yeah, I think this will be high scoring, but again, the Chargers, they just don't have any receivers right now. And Keenan Allen's been almost coming back for what seems like 5 or 6 weeks at this point. I do have a pretty wild stat, though. Since Justin Herbert took over in 2020, the Chargers are one of 2 teams in the NFL that have not won a game outright as a home underdog. So that if they're an underdog at home, they're just not going to win the game, regardless. Can you guess the other team? It might surprise you.
Bears.
No.
I would just guess the Chiefs just because they're playing.
It is the Chiefs.
It is.
If the Chiefs are home underdogs, they're just not going to win. So they might cover, but they're just not going to win, apparently. I mean, they're only 0-2. It's not a huge sample size, but yeah.
Interesting.
So that's since 2020?
Since Justin Herbert
I want to
took over.
know those 2 games that they were underdogs at home.
I think the Bills earlier this year.
That's true.
That could have been one of them.
Probably.
I don't remember. I don't know what the other one would have been though.
Interesting. Wow. Crazy stat.
Crazy stat.
Monday Night Football. This is the Mexico City game that kind of just snuck under our noses, to be honest. 49ers and Cardinals. 49ers 5-4, Cardinals 4-6. Niners offense just, I feel like they can perform so much better than they have been recently. They got McCaffrey, they got Samuel, they got Kittle, Ayuk. They got so many pieces on there that Shanahan is going to be able to work with, but they just haven't executed it like I would think they would. Maybe it was just the Chargers defense actually figuring themselves out this past week, but I feel like they can just do so much better. But maybe I'm just butthurt because my bet didn't hit on them this past week. But anyways, I think if there's a defense that they're going to have the opportunity to do it against, it should be the Cardinals. They're one of the worst defenses in the league. I know they're 29th in points per game. They're allowing 25.8 points a game. Not the greatest. Niners defense.
Worser?
We'll keep this in. Keep it in. Keep it in.
No. That's got to stay in. That's got to stay in.
When did I say worse?
You said worse.
You said the Cardinals are one of the worst defenses in the league. Let's just continue.
Keep on going.
Just
We're
continue.
We're leaving this in, so
Yeah.
you might as well keep
This
going.
podcast
buddy.
is getting worser and worser by the moment.
Worser and worser. I think the Niners defense, they'll just have to really worry about locking down Hopkins and Connor throughout this game, and then they'll have it in the bag. And they should be able to create a couple turnovers if it's Colt McCoy at quarterback, I would think.
Hey.
Still a thing.
What's up, buddy?
Colt
What's up, buddy?
McCoy.
National shit.
What's up, buddy?
But I don't know. Maybe Kyler Murray's back in this game. They haven't won since Call of Duty came out. I know Kyler didn't play last week, but that's just something to think about. He might be too busy playing COD the night before. In Mexico City, he might bring his PlayStation or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then last thing I just want to talk about, Elijah Mitchell. He might have a bigger role on this Niners offense than we might think. He had more touches than McCaffrey this past game,
Don't like that.
which is interesting.
Don't like that.
I don't like that.
C-Mac is on my fantasy team. I'm not the biggest fan of Elijah Mitchell.
If they want to have success against these better defenses, they need to get it into McCaffrey's hand. I'm picking Niners in this one, 24, Cardinals 16.
It's a good one.
I kind of like the pick. I just realized that this stat is kind of useless. It says the Cardinals are only 11 and 18 against the spread as home underdogs, but they're not at home. This is in Mexico City, so I don't really know what to say.
Well,
on
they
this
are
one.
the home team. They're
Yeah,
just
but
not
they're not at their home stadium. The Cardinals are better when they're not at home. Now they're not on the road this week either, but they're just not at home.
Yeah.
So that's all. That's what I'm gonna say. I think the Cardinals have a slight advantage just because Kyler. Maybe the internet's not as good in Mexico City. If Kyler does end up playing, then he might play better than he has the last couple of weeks.
So how will that count towards like the stats?
I'm just gonna say Cardinals. I'll say Cardinals. I'll say pro Cardinals stat,
Interesting.
and that stat being that they're not at home.
Interesting. I like it.
I mean, if they're 11 and 18 against spread as home dogs, then you figured their road and or neutral site record would be better, right? So
Yeah.
that's all I can say at this point.
Okay, finally, let's told you so. We just want to wrap it up fairly quickly with some basketball. This is still a football-heavy podcast while football continues to go on, but we want to kind of bleed into basketball. You know, it's a very important thing. We got the NBA. I'm currently shooting 70% right now, 7-3. I actually didn't have the best week last week. I went 1-2, but I've just decided to pick a game for every end of the weekend game. So this Friday, I got Celtics at Pelicans, two of my favorite teams right now. Zion is awesome for the Pelicans. Jason Tatum, his MVP has started. His MVP campaign has started. The Celtics team is awesome on defense, on offense. I don't know if I'd put them above the Bucks right now, but man, they look so good. It's in a pick'em thing like we do. You can't bet against the Celtics. I'm not going to. I'm going to pick the Celtics in this one. I really like this Celtics team so far. Saturday, this podcast, as we know, is like no other. We're going to talk about the Magic and the Pacers. That's right. We're talking about two trash cans in this game. And that's because they're both trending up. Magic's a really good team now that they have Paolo Banchero, and if you haven't been watching Paolo Banchero, you need to find a way to watch him because he's been unbelievable. And maybe a name that not a lot of people have heard of because he wasn't the first pick. He was a really good player at Arizona, and that guy's name is Benedict Mathurin, and I believe he just goes by Ben Mathurin. But he is awesome. He is, if you want to watch a dude who essentially plays basketball like a UFC fighter, gets into the ring, I think that's the exact same way that Mathurin attacks the basket. He will punch you in the mouth. It's not like a scrappy punch you in the mouth. You know what I'm saying? Like Patrick Beverly is annoying. He's like that kid in class who pokes you everywhere and says, "Oh, I'm not touching you now. I'm not touching you now." But Ben Mathurin is the guy who will stare you in the eyes, and you can be like, "This guy's killed 20 people." I don't think he's killed 20 people, but I'm just saying he's really got that in him. He's got that dog in him, some might say. And I really think that I'm gonna pick the Magic in this one, but you really should tune in this game and watch two really good young players that are coming up in this league. And I think both we might talk about someday being in the top 10 players in the league conversation. And then finally on Sunday, we got Grizzlies at Nets. I feel like the Grizzlies at Nets games are always really good, usually because it's either Dalen Brooks or John Morant who always start jawing at Kevin Durant, and they might, if Kyrie Irving ever returns, then, maybe they would get into it with him. I really kind of liked the Grizzlies as a trade destination for Kevin Durant once he asked for one. The Grizzlies just got so many pieces, they could have offered some stuff up. But I think the Grizzlies win. The Grizzlies are on a whole nother level right now. Nets,
I mean, what even are the Nets this year? We still don't know, and I don't think it's going to get nearly any better. So that's pretty much all I got for the NBA. But then now we're going to move on to college basketball, and unfortunately, the Champions Classic is when we're filming this Tuesday tonight.
Mhm.
So these picks don't really have any implication. I promise we're not filming this, and because I'm going to get my picks right, obviously.
Right, totally.
Then we're not going to get it ruined. But the Champions Classic is awesome. As a Duke fan, I love the Champions Classic every single year. It's like my favorite thing. Usually it's the first game of the year. I'm honestly kind of surprised we've had 2 games to kind of feel ourselves out. And yeah, but really, I'm really excited about this matchup. I think Kentucky and Michigan State is somewhat of a sneaky good one. Now, Kentucky will win. They just have too much talent. Michigan State has too much lack of talent. But I think that, it's going to be a relatively close one for a little bit. Kentucky's teams, they never put it together early. They never do. They expect them to lose to a Bellarmine, at some point. They always have some weird upset. They should be number 4 in the country right now, but that's a whole nother discussion, and I'm going to kind of touch on a little bit of that. I believe it's number 5, Kansas, and number 7, Duke. Kansas could be either 3 or 6, but I forgot to write down the rankings here. Duke is the opposite of Kentucky. They usually have a really, really good opening to the year, despite having a lot of freshmen come in. And I think that this year will be no different. I think that we will beat Kansas. I think that Duke has a plethora of really, really good freshmen, really, really good transfers. Every year I go Duke. Duke has a chance to win the championship this year. But I think that last year's team was star-powered. I loved our roster last year. It was incredible. Trevor Keels was pretty weak as a 6th man. But this year's team, I can't remember a deeper Duke team. And I could give you a whole scouting report of the entire team, but I'm not going to submit you guys to that. That would be pretty rough. But that being said, Duke's going to win. I feel like I have to talk about the Gonzaga at Texas game. Texas still has a lot of those transfers that transferred in last year. Chris Beard, I think this was the year that we see Chris Beard take that program to another level. And I'm going to pick Texas in this one. Gonzaga didn't look that good against Michigan State on the aircraft carrier. Granted, it was on an aircraft carrier. There was going to be something like that. It's like that Germany game with Buccaneers and Seahawks.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's in the States. Seahawks probably win. But Tom Brady knows what he's doing, and he's 45. He's like, I've done this before. Let's go win on the road in Munich. But I like Texas in this one. They're home. Gonzaga's a much better team, but I think that Texas just they got that blend. I really like teams that have a good blend. I think Duke has a good blend. I think Texas has a good blend. This next team that we're going to talk about, Baylor at Virginia. I think Baylor has an awesome blend. A lot of those guys coming back. Once again, transfer portal just proven not to be the best thing ever. Michael Mayer, what reason do you have to leave Baylor? I mean, he was kind of there. He was their white boy, Mr. Mullet, kind of thing. You felt like he was going to get the keys this year. He decides to transfer to an Illinois team, which we're going to talk about them too. And I like this year's Illinois team, but still, just kind of surprising. I mean, Baylor's still top 10 at least ranked.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but Baylor's got this freshman shooting guard, Keontae George. Keep your eye out on him. This guy is a bucket and a half. He's really good. He's a 3-level scorer. Now that when you got 3-level scorers like that, it can become almost a bad thing because we could almost see like a Cam Thomas level year from him if you remember him at LSU. He's going to chuck up a lot of shots, but I think that Keontae George is a much better player than Cam Thomas, and I think that Keontae George could really show these scouts something, and I think that going to Baylor was a really good thing because it'll help him improve on his defensive side of the game. So give me Baylor in that one. Next game, UCLA at Illinois. Like what are we doing with this UCLA? I mean, can we stop? It was 2 years ago. We're definitely going to touch on that. I cannot wait for my little rant that I got. But UCLA's fine. I think it's good that they're a top 25 team. I think that they are. They still got Jaime Jaquez, who I think is a really good player. But, I mean, just give me Illinois in this one. Illinois, under Brad Underwood, has had one of the best defenses. They're bringing in, like I said, we talked about Michael Mayer, really good guy. They had this Baylor transfer a year ago. They're apparently just bringing in Baylor guys. His name was Dane Danger. Really, really funny name. He comes off the bench for them right now. Expect him to start by the end of the year. He had a long injury last year, couldn't play during anything, but now it looks like, he came in and he's ready to play. He's a big boy. He's not going to be Coburn. There's no way that he's going to be Coburn, but he's going to be something elite. And I like this year's Illinois team. Don't know if they're going to win the Big Ten, but something to keep your eye on. Definitely tune in that one if you can. That one is on Friday. And then finally on Sunday we have Kentucky at Gonzaga, which I like that. I think it's really good when you see these big-time schools go, hey, we're going to go to Spokane and play. So that's going to be a really highly anticipated matchup. I'm going to take Gonzaga. Gonzaga is too well coached, too veteran-led to lose to a weird Kentucky team. I mean, these Kentucky, like John Calipari, all he does is recruit 100 of every position, promise all of these freshmen, hey, don't worry, you're going to get minutes over Jacob Toppin, who's like been starting here for 2 years. It's a broken system. The fact that Kentucky is top 5 ranked every single year is ridiculous. Yes, I'm saying this as a biased Duke fan. Yes, I'm saying this because Duke is like number 7 in the AP poll. Like, what makes us different than Kentucky at all? They bring in one-and-done guys. We bring in one-and-done guys. We consistently finish seasons better than them. And yet they're like, but this is the year, guys, that Kentucky really puts it together. No, they're going to lose in the Sweet 16 to like a really good defensively led Houston team, something like that. I'm telling you, right? Don't get your expectations high on Kentucky. It's not going to work. It's not, if you're a Kentucky fan, sorry. Have fun. You might get an SEC championship, but that means nothing.
I'm putting in the future on Kentucky to win the national championship.
Seriously, because I tend to be wrong about this stuff, but it just makes me so angry. Speaking of things that make me angry, one more thing. Yes, this is biased. Don't care. UNC at number 1 is absurd. Absurd. This team, there was a reason that UCLA was an 11 seed 2 years ago when they made that Final Four run. There was a reason. There is a reason that UNC was a 9 seed a year ago. Yes, God bless it. It hurt when they beat Duke. That was probably the worst loss that I ever experienced. But there's no way that they're the number 1 team in the country. That makes zero sense. I know they're bringing a lot of guys back. I think they brought in like 1 5-star center or something like that. This team is not that good, and they proved it when they were in like a 13-point game with college at Charleston. Like, they're not that good. Please, I'm begging you, AP people, you're going to regret it if you keep them at number 1. They're not the number 1 team in the country. Duke isn't the number 1 team in the country. I'm not trying to make that argument. I'm just saying, why does a Houston team that's bringing back everybody already from like a 2 seed in the tournament last year? But why do we go, oh, UNC, oh, they had a sneaky tournament run. Like, it's almost just like a theatrics ranking. It just makes me mad. I know it doesn't matter, but to me, it matters for whatever dumb reason. I like Houston and Arkansas for the championship this year. Arkansas is what I'm talking about, that blend. They got Nick Smith coming in, who's Devin Booker level of offensive output. They got another guy, Anthony Black. Okay, good. I'm glad I remembered that. Anthony Black is a really good pass-first guy. Somebody else that I can't remember his name. He's got that one disease. I don't know if you see him. He went viral a couple of years ago when people first discovered him, where he's hairless. Jordan Walsh. Jordan Walsh is his name.
Interesting.
He's like 6'9". He's one of the longest dudes I've ever seen in my life. He's probably got like a 7'3" wingspan. Definitely tune into Arkansas games if you can this year. They are a very good team. I like them for the championship. But also Houston. Houston's very veteran-led. They got this guy named Marcus Sasser. Pretty tough name off the tongue, but he's really, really awesome. Now, somebody wrote in here Maui.
Maui Invitational.
Yeah, the Maui
Invitational starts on Monday. The Ohio State University
is
taking part in it. No, Maui is just a big deal regardless.
It is.
Ohio State's in it. Cincinnati's in it. Arizona's in it. Arkansas is in it.
Mm-hmm.
I know Louisville State, but they're in it as well. They're in it too.
And that hurts for me because he was Nolan Smith.
Yeah.
Was the head coach. He's a Duke guy. Oh my God, they're terrible right now. He should never have left. But
there's someone else.
I am glad you brought that
Creighton
up.
might be in it too.
Creighton's probably in it.
And Creighton's pretty good.
Creighton's
So
got
San
that
Diego
transfer. If you were a March Madness guy last year and you tuned into that and you did your research, you would have watched this kid from South Dakota State, I believe is where he went.
Oh, Baylor Shireman.
Baylor Shireman. Yes, that's his name. I'm glad you remember
Yes.
him. Because, dude, that guy's legit.
Mhm.
I loved watching that game that he played. I watched a lot of Baylor Shireman film over the offseason.
Yeah.
That guy is really fun.
He's
so
incredible.
he's going to make me tune into Creighton games. You know, Duke was actually trying to recruit him.
As they should.
It's a shame. But what can you do? That's going to be it for us. Might have went a little long on the Told You So segment, but who cares? It's been episode 10 of the Inside Sport Podcast with the DE capitalized. Nope, it's not next week because we are all going to be on Thanksgiving break. So, unfortunately, you guys are going to miss out. But if you're listening to this on Spotify, please go ahead and give us a follow and a like. And then also, if you end up tuning in on YouTube, please give us a like and subscribe.